Welcome to the Empowered Spirit Show. This is your host, Terry Ann Hyman. I'll explore the connection to the human spirit in a way that helps to navigate your life, including crisis. I am passionate about helping you to open up to your intuition and the metaphysical world of spirit to find your confidence in your own inner guidance. Take a pause, be inspired, learn ways to show up focused, centered, and more dynamic in your everyday life.
Welcome back to the Empowered Spirit Show. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me today. This episode is being sponsored by Ritual and Shelter. Are you looking for a magical place to shop and hold space? Check out Ritual and Shelter online or in Homewood, Alabama. Browse through their bookshelves covering topics such as energy healing, crystal healing, Reiki, chakras, auras, the Akashic Records, shadow work, astrology, and earth-based healing. You can also find herbal teas and tinctures alongside their crystals and oils to help establish a mindful mindset and fluid ambience before meditation, ritual work, and reflection. Ritual and Shelter is dedicated to providing one-on-one, in-depth conversations with customers to help them find the most efficient healing methods and resources that match their unique interest and energy. They offer tarot sessions, Reiki, sound bowl, and crystal healing, and now they are offering witch consultations. Visit ritualshelter.com to book an appointment and bring peace back to the body, mind, and spirit. You can also find them on Instagram at Ritual Shelter Shop, as well as Pinterest at Ritual Plus Shelter. So as this podcast goes to air, we are heading into a holiday weekend, the unofficial start to summer, and we also have a new moon in Gemini. Gemini brings us an energy that helps us to refocus, renew the way in which we communicate, our perception. It's an air element, so it is the way that we think. Gemini energy reminds us to stretch out into the open dimensions and possibilities that we can attain. As the sun shifts from that grounded and sensual energy of Taurus into a mentally stimulating air sign of Gemini, the emphasis moves from cultivating stability and deepening our relationships with ourselves to seek novelty and change. It is a time of change, especially with the season shifting soon. Gemini season encourages us to explore new ways of relating both with other people and our surroundings. It is a mutable air sign, and so Gemini is always looking and researching, always on the move, always learning. It's ruled by Mercury, and it's always gathering data, connecting dots, and engaging in conversation. It is a time to open up our perspective. It's a dramatic shift compared to that solid, stable, fixed earth energy of Taurus. So we are opening up, expanding our horizons. And during Gemini seasons, we are asked to embrace both aspects of life, more spontaneity, more playful rhythms, dancing, having fun, opening up with the winds of change. It does have that Gemini twin energy, so we are looking at all aspects of life. And who doesn't need more play in their life right now, right? I know I do for sure. What about you? Are you stuck in the churning of the mind? Do you feel like you're in those patterns and you just can't seem to break through or get out? Yeah, I hear you on that. There is a lot of uncertainty in the air, a lot of fear. How are you dealing with it right now? Are you caught in those thoughts, letting them dictate how you feel and perceive the world? It is a time to ask those questions. What is it that you keep churning over and over, repetitively thinking? Who's doing the talking? Who's doing the listening? I know I have to ask myself that sometimes too. And maybe you know you're stuck, but maybe you just can't figure out what to do, how to make the changes, how to create a new possibility for your own path. And if you are having trouble, reach out, schedule a spiritual upgrade breakthrough call with me, and let's talk about your practice, your life, and what you can do to step forward and look at life from a different perspective. Now is the time to go into your spirit and create a spiritual practice. It will add depth, joy, mindfulness to your life. It is important that we learn to focus our mind, get quiet. When you start going within and connecting to your soul and your spirit, you will find your answers. It is within us. Perhaps you just need the guidance right into your soul. I have a few spots opened for my private mentoring Empowered Spirit program right now. Schedule a call and let's talk. Let's talk about what that next step forward is for you. Warning, warning, this work will change your life. It can seriously improve the way in which you show up each and every day. It will help you connect the body, mind, and spirit. Side effects? Yeah, you may see yourself standing up, making changes, speaking up for who you truly are. It will have effects that are really quite valuable right now. You may experience loss of excess baggage. Who doesn't need that? Resulting in major life changes. You may become the person you are really meant to be. My Empowered Spirit program can help you upgrade your spiritual path. I'll put the links to schedule a call in the show notes. This episode is also being brought to you by Expand. You're invited to join us in person on June 7th. Expand, Awaken Your Inner Mystic in Atlanta, Georgia, or you can join online. Expand brings knowledge and experience together. I'll be a part of the storytelling panel, sharing my story through my collaboration with Freddie Silva's book, Portals, Energetic Doorways Through Mystical Experiences. During this weekend, you can learn from many acclaimed teachers like Susan Giesman, Freddie Silva, Tricia McCannon, and others. This event promises to be a transformative experience with storytelling and teachings, so much going on, all in Atlanta, Georgia. I'll drop the links in the show notes as well. In today's episode, we are talking about one of my favorite topics, astrology, as we welcome back to the show, Carmen Turner Schott. She was last on the show 2 years ago with her book, Moon Sign, Houses and Healings. She has another book out, Your Astrological Energy. Maximize the power of your birth chart. And in this episode, we explore the astrological energies and how you can use your birth chart to find new ways of handling relationships, career, health, and more. Before we begin, let's take a moment to pause and center and set an intention for this new moon energy coming in. So wherever you are, if you can, close your eyes. Taking a nice deep inhale, breathing up the body. And as you exhale, call all your energy into you. Inhale, expanding the breath up the body. And as you exhale, begin to slow down, presencing your energy. Inhale, expanding the breath up the body. And as you exhale, dropping right into the heart, right into the deepest part of your heart. Feel that connection, your spirit, the greater spirit. Know that you are loved, guided, protected. Feeling all this energy coming in around us as we call in our Reiki masters, the teachers that have come before us, calling in the angels to open our heart with joy and love, calling in the crystal beings for amusement, magnification. And now call in your higher self right above the crowd to help receive the messages and set these intentions for this new moon energy. As we take this time to honor this great wheel of life. Where I am, we find ourselves in the season of spring and the direction of the east, where we plant the seeds, the sun rises, we bring that new inspiration to our life. We notice this wheel is moving and changing, and we honor all of the directions. To the east, the south, the west, and the north, above us, below us, right into the heart. Allowing these intentions to come forward for you, see and hear and feel and know. As you go to set these intentions, exhaling right through the aura, these high vibrations of how you want to feel. Taking another deep inhale and exhale. Feel the heart opened. Feel the illumination of your third eye energy. And as you're ready, exhaling all the way down, grounding with Mother Earth, starting to bring your awareness back, blinking the eyes open, coming back. Today, we welcome back to the show Carmen Turner Schott. She is a best-selling author of 11 astrology books. She is a practicing clinical social worker and astrologer with national and international clientele. The founder of Deep Soul Divers Astrology, she has worked as an astrologer and with survivors of trauma for over 28 years. The author of Sun Signs, Houses and Healing, Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon, Phoenixes and Angels, The Mysteries of the 12th Astrological House, Fallen Angels, and Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon. Turner Schott has presented astrology workshops for the Association of Research and Enlightenment. She is a faculty member and coordinator of the Counseling and Relationship Astrology Certificate Program for Kepler College of Astrology. So let us welcome Carmen back to the show. Welcome, Carmen.
Thanks for having me back. It's been a couple years, but it's good to see you.
You too. I did have to look it up. Like, when was she here? And it was July of 2023, so almost 2 years. So congratulations on this next book, Your Astrological Energy, Maximizing the Power of Your Birth Chart. How fantastic.
Yeah, the thing about astrology that I love is that it is energy. And once you learn that and learn the energies, then you're able to see it play out in the world with coworkers, with friends, with family. And you're like, oh, I feel your air, your earth, or your fire. You'll start picking up on people's elements, when you meet them because it's energy and it's science. It works. So I like to make it really basic and understandable. So anyone can read my book and learn and understand it.
I love that. To me, astrology is a big story. It's a big subject, a big school of learning. I've had an astrologer. My mother actually introduced me to her astrologer way back in the 90s and
Wow.
have gone through various different ones. And I still have several. I will admit, I have several astrologers that I talk to. But I think it's fascinating and I love learning. So I love your books and the way that you break it down. And I think it can be very helpful when we do break it down and look at all these different elements, as you say, but the different parts, which is what your book does do. It starts right away by breaking it down. Of course, I love your first sentence, astrology is energy, because
Yeah.
everything is energy, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I say for sure. So let's break it down a little bit. You start off by talking about the elements. Explain that to us.
Sure. So it's just like in nature where we have fire, air, earth, and water elements. It's the same in astrology. So fire signs are the signs that are intense and passionate, and they have that romance and that go-getter, energy, freedom loving. The fire signs, you can feel their heat, when you meet them, you can feel their intensity. And those are Aries, Sagittarius, and Leo. Okay. And then we have the earth signs, which are, just like earth, they're calm, they're grounded, they're more practical. They're more the worker bees of the zodiac, so to speak. They like to be productive and efficient and helping people, but getting things done. They're the worker bees. And the earth signs are Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo. So if your sun is in one of those signs, that'll be just your sun sign. So there's a lot more to it, which in the book, but the basic sun sign element is what you're going to probably resonate with the most and know about yourself. Oh, yeah, I'm a fire sign. I'm an earth sign. And then the water signs are emotional. They're intuitive. They're psychic. They're sensitive. They're very empathic. They feel everything around them. And are you a Cancer?
I'm on the cusp,
Are
Cancer
you
and Leo, and I've got a lot of
nice?
fire though, but I do have the water. Yes, I have both
Yeah,
of those. Yeah.
nice. Well, the water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, and they're very compassionate, but they also they can be vulnerable, so they can learn to protect themselves. So Cancer has the shell, the crab shell, that's its symbol, so it can put the shell up if it needs to, if they're feeling uncomfortable or need to protect. And Scorpio has the stinger that can sting and protect itself, but Pisces are kind of two fish out in the water. They're wide open, and so they're the sign that's known to need to have strong boundaries, which all the water signs really do to protect their energy because they feel everything. and they pick up everybody's stuff. So, and all the energy in the environment. So, and then the air signs, they're the intellectual element. So air is the hardest for me to feel and for all of us. So when I meet someone and I can't really feel their energy or guess their sign, I usually know people's sign, rising and sun or moon. I'm like, you've got air, because if I can't feel in my body the energy, it's usually air, because air, we breathe it, but it's hard to grasp it. It's there, but you can't really feel it like you can fire and earth and water, right? And so air signs are Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini. And they love to learn. They're very intellectual, but they're known to be a little bit more emotionally detached, and different than the other elements. So those are the four elements, and there's 12 signs. There's three signs in each element. And in energy wise, when we look at who do we attract, who do we get along with, who are we drawn to, who do we have trouble with, it's really important to look at your birth chart, your basic chart, and look at what your element scores are. Are you fire strong? Are you air strong? Are you water strong? Are you earth weak? Because we have like a missing element. It's like we can lack an element. Some people can. Some people have a good balance of energy with all of the elements, but in their chart. But some people have like no earth and zero water. So what happens is they attract those signs. And it's not always the most compatible because they don't understand it. So there might be a little bit more communication issues, things like that. But you're drawn to your opposite, and it's just like in nature, and you're drawn to your what's similar. So if you have a lot of fire, you're going to click with fire people, and so that's kind of like in nature. And if you think in nature, water puts fire out. So if you have a lot of water and someone has a lot of fire, it might be a little bit more challenging, in the relationship or work, whatever it is. So once you know someone's elements in your own, you'll be able to see that. And then this book is really about harnessing the energies that we lack, but also harnessing all of the 12 signs energies. Because even though you're a Cancer and I'm a Virgo, we have a bunch of energies going on our chart. But if we're like, I don't have any planets in Scorpio, or in the eighth house, and I want to harness Scorpio energy, then you can read the chapter about Scorpio and you can learn what their energies are, and you can work on those traits. We can all harness all of the positive strengths of all 12 signs, because in our birth chart, we have one of the 12 signs somewhere on the wheel, even if we don't have planets in that sign or house. So that's kind of why I wrote the book, because a lot of people always ask me that, and I'm like, but I don't have planets here. And I said, hey, it's energy. You can harness it.
So you do talk about the birth chart being that's the chart, the natal chart that we come in with. Now you also talk about the transit chart. What's the difference with that?
Yeah, a transit chart is really what's going on in the sky right now. So it's like taking a picture of the sky right now, and we put it on top of your birth chart, on top of it. So the wheel goes around your birth chart, because your birth chart never changes. It's the map of your soul. So it's never going to change. It's you, it's your soul imprint. But the transit chart can change all the time. The moon changes signs every, 2.5 days. And so the moon sign's always going. And so you're every day, every 2 to 3 days, emotionally, we're going to feel different. And that's the transits. And so some days, how you're having a good day and you're having all this energy, like, oh, the moon's in Sagittarius. That's why I'm wanting to get out and go travel. Or, if you're feeling kind of gloomy or a little bit emotional, the moon might be in Capricorn or Scorpio, or, and that affects everybody different based on your chart. And like right now, there was a major transit going on this weekend with Uranus conjuncted the sun, and that was a big deal. And people are like, "Oh, that's like the most exciting day of the year," because Uranus is unexpected changes and all this stuff. So everybody was experiencing that transit somewhere in their birth chart. So we look and say, okay, where is the sun and Uranus and Taurus in your birth chart? For me, it was in my ninth house. And so you would feel, some of those energies, and it would play out in that area of life. So That's what astrologers do when we do a reading. And people are like, what's going on in my career, or my work, my relationships. We really look at the transit chart, and we go to see, do you have any major things going on, like with the outer planets, like, and I talk about in the book, like Pluto transiting the first, Uranus in the fourth, Saturn. We look at in the book where all those experiences and energies will be, and kind of how you might experience them. And the thing I always tell people is astrology's fact, like Edgar Casey said, but we have free will and choice. So when we know these energies, we're not like just trapped. We have the free will, and if we have the awareness of, okay, I may be prone to feeling depressed and emotional right now, but I'm going to do these things, self-care, do these things to snap out of it. But if you're having a hard transit, it's good to know about it, because then you can do things to survive it and overcome it, and gain strength from it. So it's not a death sentence. It's not like all negative, but there are some things in our life, transit wise, that are difficult. And we have to go through it because we chose to. I believe it's our karma, it's our destiny. And those transits is what awakens us to our soul mission, which is why we're here. So astrology can show that too, with the nodes of the moon and all that. So
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I agree. And yeah, the transits sometimes are so valuable to know exactly for what you said. Like,
yeah.
this is where we need to work on. I know I had another guest on my show and we were talking about my chart. And
Yeah.
it was like where the Chiron, the healing was, and what I need to do. And she kept saying, you have to get visible. You have to get visible. And here I think I'm visible. But she's like, put your podcast on video. I'm like, no, no, too much. And so I ended up doing that. I listened to her. And from there, I had a pilot of my podcast that got picked up for a new show coming out. It's like, oh my gosh. So when we do work with exactly what you said, work with it, work in those hard parts, work for those shadow parts or the healing parts, then we can open up to so much more. Right. And it can be something like that, or it can be that we need to go in deeper healing and look at it. So I do
Yeah.
think it's very valuable, especially if you know what's coming on. Now, it's not like we go and just blame the stars, right? I think
Yeah.
retrograde, especially Mercury retrograde,
Oh
everyone's like,
yeah.
oh, Mercury retrograde, right? But even knowing that can help us
Oh
to
yeah.
plan better, be careful
Yes.
of our words and things like that. So I do think it's very valuable. Now, you kind of alluded to it, but we all have a sun sign, but also the time we're born is our rising sign. Tell us a little bit about the rising sign.
The rising sign is known as our mask. It's kind of how people first perceive you when they first meet you, and it's your physical appearance. It also can show how you physically look and your body shape, size, hair color, all that. And it's your energy that people see immediately. To get the rising signs change about every 2 hours. So that's why astrologers, it's so important to have your time of birth. And if we can narrow it down between a 2 hour time frame, we can get a pretty accurate chart for someone that doesn't know their time. And we call that chart rectification. There's a whole process of it, and I'm actually doing a chart today for someone that doesn't know their time. So we're going to try to narrow down that rising sign, because I asked, you send me a picture so I can see your face? And that helps you really try to narrow down, okay, what is the rising sign? And then, so the rising sign also is how we relate to all of the areas of life, and how we relate to stress. And it's really that, if your rising sign is different than your sun sign, people often misjudge you. They're like, oh, I thought you were really serious and, like, not talkative and not friendly. And they're like, you're so kind and nice. Like, I didn't know, it's like, so they have to really get to know you first, because they can misjudge you and think you're not interested in them, or you're not friendly or whatever. And it's not true. It's kind of just that mask. And it's just how people feel our energy, immediately
Mhm.
when they meet us. And
So I'm Scorpio rising and I can come off
ah,
a bit intense, right? But then I'm Cancer
yeah,
sun sign. So I
yeah.
do have that caring, nurturing, compassionate part of me. But sometimes when I am in that Scorpio energy, people can be woo, right?
I can feel your Scorpio. I got some Europe. When you look at, this is a cool thing too, when you look at the rising sign, um, whatever signs on the rising, you want to look at the planet that rules it, because that will be your chart ruler. So your chart ruler is Pluto, which is intense, transformation, rebirth, death, healing,
All the time.
power, it's like when someone has Scorpio rising, which means Pluto's your ruler, it's like having a lot of Scorpio or eighth house energy in your birth chart because it people feel vulnerable when they're around your energy because it's like their secrets, because Scorpios, everybody wants to tell Scorpio their secrets. So people are like, they either really want to be around you and they tell you everything, like all their trauma, all their secrets, or they're a little scared of you. You're like, why don't they like, why aren't they talking to me? They kind of shy away from you because they feel vulnerable. And it's just your energy because Pluto's strong as a chart ruler when you have Scorpio rising. It's a strong one. Yeah. And it's a healing one. So it doesn't
And then
surprise.
the other side of that is that Cancer energy makes me very sensitive, taking
Yeah.
too much personally. So that's something I've had to
Yes.
learn too,
Abs-
right? And so learning to work with that Scorpio energy has been very valuable for me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it is fascinating. There's so many facets to our
Oh,
sign,
yeah.
but you know what? We are too. We have so many facets to our personality,
Yeah.
right?
I
Yeah.
know.
Now you also then get into the planets.
Yeah, a lot of times, some of the inner planets, well, we know the sun stays in each sign about 30 days, and then, Mercury, Venus, some of those inner planets, and the moon, of course, they move more quickly through each of the star constellations, the signs and the houses. But so I look at that, I look at, the moon in the first, the moon in the second. Well, we know it's not going to stay there real long, but these are the things you're going to feel when the moon's in Aries in the first house and the moon's in Aries in the second house, and you can look up. The cool thing about this book is this is the biggest book I've ever wrote, and it took me a
Mm.
lot. It was like I'm like, whoa, like it was a lot. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna write a book for a while, but now I'm already wanting to write another book. But you know how it is. It's like you
I
forget,
applaud you
okay,
for that for sure.
you
It
forget it.
is exactly what you said. You have chapters for every single thing. I've already got
Yeah.
bookmarks,
Oh yeah.
right?
I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. It's the first book that I've written that you're going to use the whole book. So in my other books, the sun signs book, the moon signs book I wrote with Llewellyn, most people just look up their chapter, their Cancer, their Scorpio. They might look up their friend or their family member or whatever. But each chapter's really was designated specifically for that sign. This is different because you're going to have to use all the chapters because you may have the moon in Scorpio. So you're going to go into the Scorpio chapter. You may have the moon in the 10th house. You're going to go to the 10th house Capricorn chapter. So you're going to be using the whole book to find, when you have your birth chart to look up the house placement. The thing that I didn't include in this book because it would have just been too big of a book would be the transits. And that might be something I do in the future, a book on transits. And that is very detailed because every transit, moon square sun, I mean, moon in Aries, this it would be a big book. So this is the planet in the sign, the planet in the house, the planet in transit, and then how to harness and the key energies and traits of each sign. And so that's kind of what I focused on.
So talk about the houses now.
Yeah, the houses. So, I always tell people like they always say they get confused with the houses. Like what is house? So if you imagine, when you're looking up at the sky when you're born, from Earth, take a picture of the sky, and there's 12 signs. All the planets are in one of the signs, and we break the sky into 12 sections like a pie. We take a picture of it and we put it on a piece of paper, and it's a wheel. And each house is ruled by one of the 12 signs. So the traits and energies, because it's all about energy, the energy of that sign is the issues of that house. So in astrology, the ascendant is, when the sun's coming up on the horizon, is the rising sign. And the first house is Aries, because Aries starts the zodiac. And the first house is your appearance, your body, how people see you, your it's like speaking up, taking action, yourself. It's the house of self. And then the second house is Taurus. It just goes in a row. So Taurus is money, finance, security, comfort. That rolls the second house. The money you make. The third house is Gemini, communication, siblings, short journeys, learning, publishing, writing, teaching. Fourth house is Cancer, home and family, ancestors, your roots, right? Where you go to hide from the world to recover and be safe. The fifth house is creativity. It's Leo. It's self-expression. It's children. It's pleasure. It's fun. It's love affairs. Sixth house is Virgo. It's health. It's your diet, it's your routine. So all, if you can see the connection, the energies of the houses are the same as the traits of the sun sign. So that's how it's simple once you kind of start looking at it. And then seventh
Did
house
not
is,
know that.
yeah,
I did not know that, but
yeah,
I mean, it makes sense now that you say that, but yeah, I did not know that. Thank you. Yeah.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it helps make it kind of put it together. And then, so seventh house, Libra rules marriage and partnership. And they're, it's the house of compromise. Libra's like compromising. They're focused on the other people. And so Libra rules, of course, marriage and relationships. And then Scorpio, which we're talking about, is ruled by Pluto. Scorpio is the sign of death and rebirth, power, control, intensity, secrets, mysticism, psychic abilities. And Scorpio is the eighth house, which is the house of death and rebirth. So it's a very powerful house in the chart to have planets. And so it's very intense to have planets there. And there can be a lot of trauma, loss, but also strength and resiliency when you have planets in the eighth house. And then the ninth house is Sagittarius. It's all about foreign travel, religion, philosophy, learning, knowledge, languages, different cultures, different foods, being on the go, moving, optimism, faith, hope. So ninth house is a very Sagittarius house. And then the 10th house is the public. It's your midheaven is what we call it. It's the career. It's what work you do, what work you're drawn to. And it's ruled by Capricorn, which is all about work, career success, achievement, recognition, right? So that's our 10th house, and it's Capricorn. And then 11th house is groups, friends, acquaintances, humanitarian causes, non-traditional beliefs, thinking outside the box, space travel, astrology, all this stuff. And it's Aquarius. That's because Aquarius is all about being a rebel and being eccentric and unique and creative and non-traditional. They want to question tradition. So the 11th house is Aquarius. And then the 12th house ends the wheel because there's 12 signs, and the last sign of the zodiac is Pisces. So Pisces rules the 12th, which is the house of cosmic consciousness. It's a house of spirituality, escapism, addiction, mysticism, a oneness with God, having a spiritual path, service to others, meditation, yoga, all of these mystical things, mysticism, it's ruled by Neptune, Pisces is. So it's all that mystical energy. So that's the 12 signs, all are associated, their energies with the 12 houses. And then what you look at is, do I have planets in any of those houses? And then what sign is my planet in? And then you start looking it up. I mean, it's like each aspect, you look up everything and you get a little bit of a little tip or taste of your personality, because there's going to have a lot of different energies affecting you. And you might have one thing that sounds kind of negative, and when you look it up, but then you have a lot of other things. So it's just energy, guys. That's all it is. It's all the energy that makes you who you are.
It is quite fascinating. Thank you for that explanation. And I never did put that together, but it does make more sense. And I think now I have a better understanding. It's like, what is that house? What is that house? And I kind of know the cycle of the astrology. So that's very helpful for me to know that. I'm very grateful for that. Yeah. And it is interesting when you do look at your birth chart where everything is, right? And like you'd mentioned too, like the Chiron, that healing was in my family, was in the ancestors, right on my mother, right? And
Yeah.
so it was like, yeah, and I had to take a lot of time to do some of that healing to bring it forward. And yeah, who wants to go through it? But on the other hand, when you come out of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you're saying about the Scorpio, for me, yeah, well, no wonder I work with the soul. No wonder I work with mysticism and help people through that transition of life. Like, yeah, it makes total sense. Now, we
Yeah.
don't always get there immediately, but it can help us to
Yeah.
understand what we're going through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
got Phoenix energy. When Pluto is your ruler and Scorpio is your rising, it's the Phoenix. It's lots of rebirths and transformations through your life, emotional, mental, physical. It's intense and deep, but then you become a healer to others, and that's kind of Chiron, and it's an asteroid in astrology, so it's not in a lot of the books. There are books about it, but Chiron is so important because it's like Pluto a little bit. It's where we have a wound that we have to heal. So when you look at where Pluto is in your chart, there's something that happened usually in childhood that we have to heal. And then when we heal it, we become stronger in that area of life. Chiron is where we have to heal, but we become a wounded healer where we can help other people heal similar trauma, similar pain, and we can break cycles, like you said. My Chiron is conjunct my moon in the eighth house. And so, the maternal side, the ancestor, I'm going through that too. And then about the Chiron return. Everyone has a Chiron return, which is during the midlife crisis. It's around the age of 50. Everyone on earth has it. And that's Chiron is associated with that midlife crisis, guys, which is
I
like,
feel like it's more the age of 40 personally, but you're right. I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah, it
50.
started for
Yeah,
me
but
about 45, but and it is because the energy of Chiron is close to where it is in your birth chart. So it's awakening it early, even before you turn 50. And I'm in it now. I'm going to be 50 in August, and it's right there returning in my eighth house, and it's been intense. Um, Lots of change. I completely changed my life a couple months ago. So it's a lot. Yeah. But I
well,
feel
that, yay, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, we're not meant to stay the same, but yet as humans, we tend to hold on. That's just how we're wired,
Right.
right? But I know for me, there has been so many. I mean, that's how I came into astrology, really. I'd had a
Yeah.
reading and then I went through a major upheaval in my marriage, and my astrologer just became so important, like helping me to understand what do I do, what's going on. And I
Yeah.
think it does help us to understand that. Now, I'm not saying it's predictive, like you said, like we always have free will, but
Yeah.
when we know things are coming about, we can plan our lives.
Yes.
And so to me, it's very important to have an astrology reading. Sometimes, like, you never had one? Like, really?
I
But I
know.
have, and my kids have too. I have a Libra daughter. She
Nice.
loves her astrologer. Oh my gosh, she still has one that when we lived in New York, and she's like word for word with him, and it becomes so accurate. It's
Yeah.
amazing for her. And then my son is a Pisces. Talk
Oh,
about boundaries.
oh
This
yeah.
kid knows boundaries. It's amazing
Yeah,
sometimes because he is so sensitive, but he did pick up boundaries,
yeah,
right? I'm not so sure about the deep, spiritual part of him, but
yeah,
through his marriage, I can see a little bit of that coming through, the love and the compassion and the caring and the giving. Yeah, I can definitely see
yes,
that. But it
yeah.
is fascinating when we know our children's charts too. I think it helps
Oh,
them to grow and us to understand and parent them better too.
absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned Pisces because in astrology, every sign has a polar opposite. And when you think of polar opposite, you think that means they're very different, but they're actually very compatible because every polar opposite sign is a compatible element. So all of the earth signs oppose the water signs, all of the fire signs oppose the air signs. And so Pisces polar opposite is Virgo. And so a lot of Pisces I meet, they have more Virgo traits. It's kind of like a continuum. He may be more practical, more logical, than the textbook Pisces, and have, and I see that with a lot of Pisces men. They have a little bit more the Virgo continuum, on there, but they're still a Pisces, but it's kind of in towards the Virgo side a little bit. Then you have Virgos that are more I'm a Virgo. I have Virgos, I'm more towards the Pisces side. I feel more like I'm a Pisces. So, and they share similar traits and also health vulnerabilities. The polar opposites share the same kind of health vulnerabilities, and they also are the same modality, which in astrology, it's energy, cardinal, fixed, or mutable. Cardinal energy or cardinal signs start the seasons of the year. They like to get things going. They like to be the idea people. So, and yeah, Cancer, you are cardinal sign.
Cardinal.
Capricorn's your opposite. So you will have Capricorn traits as well because that's your polar opposite. And so it's compatible. And then fixed signs, they don't like change. When they make their mind up, they're very strong-willed and stubborn. So they dig their heels in. They have to feel comfortable to change. It's not easy for them. And then the mutable signs are like they are very adaptable, very flexible. They can go, they may not like to change, but they will do it for others. Because Virgos are known to be control free. We like things a certain way, but Virgo's a mutable sign. So I feel like, yeah, I'm easy going. If someone explains, hey, let's do this instead because of this, I'm like, okay, I'm mutable. Um, like my husband has a lot of fix, so he's like, but you said we're going to this Mexican restaurant. I'm like, yeah, but I changed my mind. I want Italian now. He's like, but we said we're going. I'm like, just let it go. So they can't help it because they when they get their plan, it's hard to change. Mutable signs are like, yep, let's just do it, or well, oh yeah, forget it. Let's just wing it. Let's just go, and some other signs, fixed signs aren't always comfortable with the mutable signs, because we can
Interesting.
just change on a whim, change our mind, and they don't like that.
So what happens when we marry the same sign or we're in partnership?
Oh
Like
yeah.
like both my kids, my son is married to a Pisces, so both Pisces, and my daughter's Libra married to a Libra.
It's actually, it's kind of good in my opinion, but I'm kind of biased because I married a Virgo. He's born the same day as me, but he's 5 years older. And before I met him, I always dated Aries, and they always broke my heart. And this was in my younger days. And I'm like, no more Aries. I mean, I was so drawn because my moon is in Aries. So there's always things in the chart that you'll be drawn to or in chemistry, but doesn't mean it's the best match for you. So you have to look at everything, right?
Mm.
And so I told my friend, no more Aries. Find out his birthday. She was trying to set me up on a blind date. And she's like, you're not going to believe this. He's a Virgo. He's born the same day as you. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. And so we've been married 26 years. And the thing is, it wasn't always easy because you are a lot alike in some ways, but it makes it easier, I feel, because you understand each other,
Mm.
and I see that with signs that are the same. Their sun, because the sun is really a big part of us. It is. And the top three are the sun, moon, and rising. Those are really our key energies that express themselves in our lives, those three. And so we, looking at the sun, though, we're a lot alike. Like, he'd want things a certain way. Like, I put dishes in the dishwasher. This is when we first got married. I was 23 years old, and he'd move them around. And I'm like, I just put them in there. Yeah, but they weren't in right. And I'm like, that's a Virgo. And I'm like, I just had to, okay. And sometimes I say, okay, get out of the kitchen. Either you cook or I cook, So, you have the same kind of tendencies, and you just have to, but it's easy because you understand each other.
I
I
love
think,
that. And then also with the between the rising and where your moon is, so just because you have the same
oh
sun,
yeah,
that gives us different inflections on our personality. Yeah.
absolutely. And,
Yeah.
and, opposites attract, but like attracts like as well with energy. And
I
yeah.
think I had an astrologer once that said it's not good to date the next sign, the immediate next. Like for me, if I'm a Cancer, the Gemini, or then the,
uh,
I guess for me
yeah.
it'd be Virgo right after, right? Is that fall into anything that you know?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Well, see, Leo would be your next sign if
Oh
you're
yeah.
Cancer.
All right. I'm on the cusp though.
And
Right. Yeah.
that makes sense. You know why? Because it's the elements. It's all about
Mm.
the elements because Cancer's water, Leo's fire. Fire puts out water. That's probably where he's coming from, that on a basic,
Gotcha.
101 energy thing. And same with like Virgo. Virgo is, I've been told the same thing. Virgo's earth, Libra's air, not good for earth. Air is not the best for earth because we can't feel it. We're like, do they like us or not? And so I do see, and it's the elements. That's where he came up with that because the elements
Mm.
aren't
That makes
compatible.
sense.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not always compatible for you.
That does make sense. It is fascinating, though, that we can learn so much about ourselves from a birth chart. And
Oh my God.
yeah, and that we can look it up and have this ability to even
Yeah.
plan our year. I mean, that's why I do several different readings, like even just the reading I had is like, okay, that's enough information. There's so much switching around in my chart right now. I
Yeah.
couldn't even get to the eclipses and the falls. Like, no, I'll have to call you back. Like
Oh,
right
I
now,
know.
this is all I need. I have a lot of change going on, a lot of transitions. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the thing I love about astrology is that you can spend your whole lifetime learning something. I'm still
I
learning it.
agree.
I've been studying it since I was 19 years old, so 16 years old. So I love it. It's been my whole life. I live it. I love it. I believe in it, and I want to write about it and make it so simple that anyone can read it and understand my books. That's why I do it because it is complex. It gets very
It
complex
is.
with
It
it,
is.
and
This
but
is
at
your
no,
11th
this
book.
is my 11th book, but this is my third book with Llewellyn, and then I
Okay.
have 4 books with another publisher, and then I self-publish some. Yeah,
Oh my goodness. That's
I love it.
fascinating. What led you to astrology? I didn't even ask that. What led you
Yeah.
to astrology?
Well, I was always different and very sensitive. I would dream things that would happen, and I had weird experiences as a child. And one night when I was 16, I woke up and there was a glowing ball light in my doorway, and I was frozen. I couldn't yell for my mother. I couldn't move. All I could do is watch this orb. and it floated there. And all I had control of was my mind. I'm like, please don't come on, Marin, please. Because I was scared. It was the unknown, right? I grew up in the Midwest. I wasn't raised knowing any of these spiritual, mystical things, but I always believed in it and was interested in it. I was born this way, as I say, it's my chart. And after that experience, I wanted to learn everything about angels and orbs and I mean the pyramids, UFOs, you name it. Started studying everything, and I went into a little bookstore in St. Louis called Mystic Valley, and I got a book. I'm like, "Ooh, I'm a Virgo. That's my birthday." I didn't know, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is so me." So then I taught myself astrology, and back in those days, I had to do it by hand. The longitude, latitude. We didn't have computers, and I would draw birth charts, draw the symbols, and I don't know how I did it, but I taught myself astrology, and it became my passion because I saw how accurate it was. And I'm like, this validates me. And I was going to be a counselor, a social worker. So I'm like, this is more deep and effective than talk therapy. Like, this is amazing. So I started just
Great.
practicing and started my business when I was 19, doing charts for people in grad school. And then I always had a normal social work job. I worked with trauma survivors most of my career, and children and adults. I worked for the Air Force for 25 years. I just retired a
Wow.
couple months ago. So that's been a big change. I left my work that I'd done so long because I knew I was meant to do what I'm doing now with astrology full time. So that's what I'm doing. But yeah, I've always had my side astrology charts and consults, and did fairs, workshops. I did that in different states all my whole life. And yeah, and now I wrote books on my own, but I finally, started getting more in the publishing world really 2020, I think, is when I got my first published book with Llewellyn. That was my Sun Signs,
Nice.
Houses, and Healing book. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
So,
the one I think we had on was the moon signs,
yeah,
houses and
moon
healing.
sign.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And now
It
this,
is fascinating. And I agree with you. It is a big study. And I try to learn something every year. I try to, like, on the summer when I have a little time, although I don't know about the summer, but I do try to like learn something new every year and just take it in and just look at it more and more. Lately, I've been trying to read my chart a little bit more, like
yeah,
really understand it. And now I learned something new. I'm so excited. And then
yeah,
look at like the transit energy and what's going on, right? I mean, I took notes for my reading and I have it now. It's like, okay, let me break it down. I'll go back and listen to the
yeah,
recording a couple of more times. And then now I'm going to look up in your book a little bit more of what she said. So I do think it is that possibility that we keep delving deeper and deeper. And I think therapy is good. Yes, I've had much therapy. I've had
yeah,
much therapy. But I
yeah,
think when we can get into the energy, and even like what I do with the integrative therapies, it helps us go deeper and deeper into the soul. And as I'm like really recognizing, like, yeah, this makes so much sense as to what I've chosen for my path. And for years I fought it because, yeah, it is different. It is
yeah,
not the normal path, being a spiritual counselor, teaching Reiki, doing integrative therapy, tarot cards. Like, I hid that for years, right?
yeah,
But it
yeah,
is what I do. And it makes so much sense that, yeah, now after I've done some of the healing, looked at where some of those wounds are in the chart, that I can now step forward with so much more confidence, grace, and ease. So I love it. I really do. And I applaud you for writing your books. I think it's just awesome how many you've done. So that is wonderful. Yeah, definitely. Where can we find you? What's going on? You teach, you offer sessions.
yeah. I'm offering consults full time now, because this is my full time gig now. So you can find me on CarmenTurnerSchott.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Carmen Turner Schott author, and then on Facebook, it's Deep Soul Divers Astrology. Carmen Turner Schott, that's my Facebook page. You can follow me. And my biggest thing is I have a class coming up with the College of Psychic Studies in the UK in July, and it's astrology, past lives, and soul mission. And that class will be July on 3 Saturdays in a row, July 5, 12, and 19, from 12 to 1 p.m. Central or 1 to 2 Eastern. And you can register if you go to my website, carmenturnershot.com. If you go to classes, I have it on the class link there. You can register to attend. Would love to have you. And I'll be talking about the nodes of the moon in our birth chart, Saturn, how all of this in your chart relates to your soul mission, and look at everybody's charts and teach all about the nodes of the moon. It'll be fun. What sign they're in, what
Oh,
house.
wow.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah, maybe I'll take that back. Maybe that'll be my learning for the summer. That'll be awesome. And I will definitely put the link in the show notes for everyone to check that out. I think that's fascinating. And again, when we can learn more about our soul and our journey,
Yeah.
right? It makes us
Yeah.
healthier and happier and understanding, even the hard stuff,
Yeah.
even the hard stuff.
Tools.
Yeah.
These are tools. It's like having another tool in your toolbox. You got Reiki, you got tarot cards, you got astrology.
There you go.
These are just numerology. I mean, all these are tools to help us know it's to understand ourselves and others better. That's why I love astrology because it's
Yeah.
validating. And then you're not like taking things personal. Like, okay, this is their energy, this is their sign. Same with with your parents. They have a chart. They have their own karma, their own issues too, right? Your kids, your spouse, and it gives you a little bit of compassion for people. And I think you're able to understand other people better and yourself, so that's why I
Yeah.
love it.
I totally agree. I really do. And I think you've offered us so much. And like you said, the book just breaks it all down for us. We can go through, you can read about so many different things and explain more and more. And it is something that you'll come back to, right?
Yeah.
You can take your time, go through it, look up a little bit and let yourself, take it in because you can't just read it page to cover, right? Cover to cover. But it is a great reference. And learning something every year about it is so helpful. I really do agree. So, as we go to close, we've kind of said it, but if you could just leave our listeners with an uplifting thought on how you feel that knowing about your astrological energy can help to empower the spirit right now.
Yes, I would say astrology helps us heal, transform, and become more resilient. And knowing the basis of your sun sign, you can tap into those strengths and use that to overcome any obstacles and things you have because you're powerful.
You are powerful. Knowing more is really a gift for sure. Yeah. Well, Carmen, it's so great to connect with you again. Congratulations on your 11th book. It's so powerful. Thank you for joining us to your
Thank
spirit.
you. Thank you.
So, yes, astrology can help us to heal, to transform, and become more resilient. Knowing the basis of your natal chart can really empower you. You can tap into the strengths, you can heal from the places that feel dark and overwhelming, and you can overcome these obstacles and the things you have going on in your life. I know it works for me, and it is that powerful, and you are that powerful, just as Carmen says. Knowing more is a gift. I highly recommend checking out Carmen's books, her work, and her classes. Schedule a session if you have never had a chart done. It will be very, very empowering. You will be surprised at all it can uncover for your soul's journey. And if you are ready to reach out and create a spiritual practice, schedule a spiritual upgrade call with me. It is time to go within, to learn new tools, and create a path that is empowering and uplifting and that brings you joy. Thanks again so much for listening. I am your host, Terry Ann Hyman, to your spirit. Namaste.